The notification sound from our shared tablet made me look up from my laptop. Dana had left it open on the kitchen counter, Instagram still glowing with her latest post. Another perfectly staged photo of us at brunch, her manicured hand resting on mine while she gazed adoringly into my eyes. The caption read, "Sunday vibes with my forever person. Couple goals. Blessed, my everything." I almost laughed. In reality, she'd spent that entire brunch scrolling through comments and asking me to retake the photo 6 times because the lighting wasn't flattering enough. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. But it wasn't Instagram that caught my attention. It was the group chat notification that popped up at the top of the screen. Queens only, Jenna. OMG, yes. Ghost him for like a month. He'll crawl back and totally obey. My coffee mug froze halfway to my lips. Ghost him? Obey? I glanced toward the bathroom where Dana was doing her elaborate skincare routine, the one that took exactly 47 minutes every morning and cost more than my monthly car payment. The shower was still running. Another message popped up. Maya, Dana, you're so smart. Men need to be trained like dogs. Ignore them and they'll do anything for attention. Dana, exactly. I've been too available. Time to reset the power balance. Eric's gotten way too comfortable. My hands went cold. Eric. That was me. They were talking about me. Jenna. How long are you thinking? 2 weeks? Dana. At least a month. I'm booking that wellness retreat in Tulum. Perfect excuse. No calls, no texts, complete radio silence. Kate. Isn't that kind of cruel? I mean, he's your husband. Maya. Kate. Stop being such a bleeding heart. Dana needs to establish dominance. Trust me, my ex used to walk all over me until I started the silent treatment. Now he buys me whatever I want. Dana. Maya gets it. This isn't cruel, it's strategic. When I come back, Eric will be so grateful for my attention that he'll never question anything I do again. I set my mug down carefully, my hands shaking slightly. 4 years of marriage, 4 years of thinking we were building something together, and she was talking about me like I was a disobedient pet that needed training. Jenna, what if he gets suspicious about the retreat? Dana, please. Eric's so buried in his coding projects he barely notices when I'm here. Besides, I already told him it's a digital detox thing. No phones allowed. He totally bought it. The shower shut off. I quickly closed the chat and opened my own laptop, pretending to work on the database optimization project I'd been debugging for weeks. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure Dana would hear it when she came out. Morning, babe, she said, emerging from the bathroom in her silk robe, skin glowing from whatever $100 serum she'd just applied. She kissed the top of my head absently while checking her phone. Did you see how many likes our brunch post got? Almost 3,000 already. Wow, I managed, my voice surprisingly steady. That's great. She settled onto the couch with her phone, immediately lost in the endless scroll of social media. This was our morning routine. She curated her online presence while I worked, occasionally asking me to take photos of her coffee or her outfit or whatever aesthetic moment she wanted to capture. Oh, I forgot to tell you, she said, without looking up. I booked that wellness retreat I mentioned. In Tulum. Next week. Next week? I kept my voice casual, but inside I was reeling. She was actually doing it. That's sudden. I know, but they had a last-minute cancellation, and you know how hard it is to get into these places. It's a complete digital detox. No phones, no internet, just pure mindfulness and healing. She finally looked up, her expression perfectly innocent. You don't mind, do you? I know it's a month, but I really need this. A month. Just like she'd planned. Of course not, I said, managing a smile. You deserve some time to recharge. She beamed at me, and for a split second, I saw a flash of the woman I'd fallen in love with 5 years ago, before the Instagram account took off, before every moment of our lives became content to be staged and shared, before she started seeing me as an obstacle to her personal brand rather than her partner. "You're the best," she said, already turning back to her phone. "I'll probably be pretty busy getting ready this week. You know how it is." I knew exactly how it was. She was already starting the ghost protocol, withdrawing gradually so the sudden silence wouldn't seem suspicious. Over the next 3 days, I watched her implement her plan with surgical precision. Shorter conversations, less eye contact. Her responses to my questions became increasingly vague and distracted. She started staying out later with the girls, coming home after I was already in bed. But here's the thing about being a software developer. We're good at seeing patterns. We notice bugs in systems. And Dana's system had a major flaw. She'd forgotten that I had access to all our shared accounts. While she was out at what I assumed was another strategy session with her enablers, I started my own project. Not revenge, not yet. Just preparation. First, I transferred my direct deposit to a new account at a different bank. Then I quietly moved half our savings, my half, the half I'd contributed from 4 years of 60-hour work weeks while she built her influencer empire. I changed the passwords on all my personal accounts and set up a new phone plan. I even started casually moving my most important belongings to my office, claiming I needed reference books for a big project. Tom, my coworker, and probably my only real friend, noticed the boxes. "Moving out?" he asked, poking his head into my cubicle. "Maybe," I said quietly. "Depends how the next few weeks go." Tom was one of those guys who said more with silence than most people did with words. He just nodded and grabbed one of the boxes. "Need help loading these into your car?" That's when I knew for sure what I was going to do. Dana left for Tulum on a Thursday morning. She kissed me goodbye at the door, her lips barely brushing my cheek, and promised to miss me so much, with all the sincerity of a telemarketer reading a script. "I'll call you when I get there," she said, wheeling her designer suitcase toward the Uber. "Have a great time," I replied, knowing she absolutely would not call. The moment her car disappeared around the corner, I pulled out my phone and called Tom. "Operation Clean Slate is a go," I said. "Jesus, Eric, you sound like you're planning a heist." "In a way, I am. I'm stealing my life back." Tom arrived an hour later with a moving truck and 3 other guys from our development team. I'd worked with these people for years, shared countless late-night debugging sessions and pizza-fueled timeline crunches. When I explained the situation, keeping it simple, just saying Dana and I were getting divorced and I needed to move out quickly, they didn't ask questions. We emptied that apartment like a SWAT team. My clothes, my books, my computer equipment, the furniture I'd brought into the marriage, even the coffee maker I'd bought because Dana's fancy espresso machine was too complicated for daily use. The only things I left were her belongings and the items we'd bought together, the couch, the dining set, the ridiculously expensive throw pillows she'd insisted would elevate the space. By evening, the apartment looked like a showroom, clean, minimalist, and completely devoid of any trace that I'd ever lived there. I left the divorce papers on the kitchen counter, held down by her favorite scented candle. Next to them, I placed a single sheet of paper with a message I'd spent an hour crafting. "Dana, I learned my place, far from you. The locks have been changed. All joint accounts have been closed. Your personal accounts remain untouched. My lawyer will be in contact regarding the division of assets. Everything in the apartment is yours. Don't contact me directly. Eric P.S. I hope the wellness retreat gives you the clarity you were looking for." Then I drove to my new apartment across town, a small but comfortable place I'd found and secured during one of her longer girls' nights out, and waited. For exactly 10 days, my phone was blissfully quiet. Dana was maintaining her digital detox cover story, probably having the time of her life with whatever guy she was actually with in Tulum. Based on her friends' group chat conversations, which I could still see thanks to our shared tablet. I was pretty sure it was Aiden, the owner of the CrossFit gym where she'd been spending an awful lot of time lately. But on day 11, everything changed. My phone started buzzing at 11:13 p.m. Dana's contact photo, a selfie of her pouting at the camera, filled the screen. I let it ring. Then it rang again. And again. By the fourth call, I was genuinely curious, so I answered. Eric, oh my God, where are you? What happened to our apartment? Everything's gone. Her voice was shrill with panic, completely different from the calm, controlled tone she'd been using before her trip. I could hear her moving around, probably checking every room for signs of her previous life. Hello, Dana, I said calmly. How was your retreat? Don't play dumb. Where is everything? Where are you? The neighbors said they saw a moving truck. I moved out. I thought the note was pretty self-explanatory. What note? What are you talking about? The one on the kitchen counter, next to the divorce papers. The silence stretched so long I wondered if the call had dropped. Then I heard her breathing, quick and shallow. Divorce papers? Her voice was barely a whisper. I figured it would save us both some time. You wanted space to find yourself, right? Now you have all the space you need. Eric, I don't understand. This is insane. You can't just... We're married. You can't just disappear. The irony was so thick I could have cut it with a knife. Funny thing about disappearing, I said. I learned it from an expert. What's that supposed to mean? It means your month of ghosting me was very educational. I discovered I really enjoy the peace and quiet. Another long silence. When she spoke again, her voice had taken on that manipulative sweetness she used when she wanted something. Baby, I think there's been a misunderstanding. I was at a wellness retreat. I told you that. There was no phone service, no internet. I wasn't ghosting you, I was... Dana. What? I saw the group chat. The line went silent. I set my phone on silent and went to bed. For the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking up to the glow of her phone as she scrolled through Instagram at 2 a.m. The next morning brought a barrage of texts, missed calls, and increasingly desperate voicemails. Dana had clearly abandoned any pretense of the wellness retreat story and was in full crisis mode. But the really interesting development came from an unexpected source, her Instagram account. See, when you build your entire brand around being half of a perfect couple, and then half of that couple suddenly vanishes without explanation, people notice. Her comment section was full of questions about where I was, why I wasn't in any of her recent posts, whether everything was okay. Dana tried to maintain the facade for about a week, posting solo shots with captions about finding herself and embracing independence. But her engagement was dropping. The algorithm was brutal to influencers whose content suddenly shifted, and brands were starting to notice. More importantly, her friends were starting to distance themselves. I knew this because I was still getting notifications from that group chat. Turns out, when your brilliant manipulation strategy backfires spectacularly, your co-conspirators don't want to be associated with the failure. Dana, maybe you should have thought this through more. Maya, I never said to completely destroy your marriage. That's on you. Kate, I tried to warn you this was too extreme. Dana, you guys told me to do this. You said he'd come crawling back. Maya, we said ghost him for like a week, not drive him to file for divorce. There's a difference. It was fascinating to watch the group turn on her in real time. These women who had been so eager to help her train me were now scrambling to avoid any responsibility for the consequences. But the real entertainment started when Dana began trying to contact me directly. She showed up at my office building twice, but security turned her away both times. She tried calling from different numbers, but I'd blocked everything. She even created fake social media accounts to try to reach me, but I'd gone completely dark online. Finally, she tried the nuclear option. She attempted to turn our mutual friends against me. This backfired spectacularly. See, most of our friends were actually my friends first. people I'd known since college, or coworkers I'd grown close to over the years. Dana had never really bothered to cultivate her own friendships outside of her influencer circle. She'd always been too busy managing her image to invest in real relationships. When she started calling people, crying about how I'd abandoned her and stolen everything, she got a very different response than she expected. Tom told me about his conversation with her over beers one night. "She called me sobbing," he said, shaking his head. "Said you'd had some kind of breakdown and moved out without warning. Wanted me to talk sense into you." "What did you tell her?" "I told her I'd helped you move." He took a long sip of his beer. She did not take that well. "I can imagine. She started screaming about how I was a terrible friend and how could I help you destroy your marriage. So I told her maybe she should have thought about that before planning to ghost you for a month." I nearly choked on my drink. "You knew about that?" "Eric, you think I'm an idiot? You were moving boxes out of your office for 2 weeks and looking like someone had kicked your dog. Plus, you kept checking your phone like you were waiting for bad news. It doesn't take a genius to figure out something was up." That was Tom, quietly observant, fiercely loyal, and completely unimpressed by Dana's dramatics. The conversation that really sealed Dana's fate, though, happened with my friend Jake, who made the mistake of being polite when she called. "She went on this whole sob story," Jake told me later, talking about how marriage is about forgiveness and working through problems together. Really laying it on thick. Sounds about right. So I asked her what problem you guys were working through, what had happened that made you leave so suddenly. And? She couldn't give me a straight answer, just kept saying you'd misunderstood something and that she'd been focusing on self-care. When I pressed her for details, she got defensive and started attacking you instead. Jake had known me for 15 years. He'd been the best man at our wedding. If Dana couldn't convince him that I was the villain in this story, she couldn't convince anyone. But Dana wasn't giving up. If anything, the mounting pressure was making her more desperate and less rational. 3 weeks after her return from Tulum, she made her biggest mistake yet. I was leaving my office building after a particularly long day when I spotted her car in the parking garage. She was sitting behind the wheel, clearly waiting for me. When she saw me, she got out and started walking over. "Eric, we need to talk." "No, we don't." I kept walking toward my car, keys already in hand. "Yes, we do." Her voice echoed off the concrete walls. "This is ridiculous. You're acting like a child." I stopped and turned around. "I'm acting like a child?" "Yes, running away instead of talking through our problems like adults." "What problems, Dana? The problem where you plan to emotionally manipulate me for a month? Or the problem where you discussed training me like a dog with your friends?" Her face flushed red. "You were spying on me." "You left your group chat open on our shared tablet. I didn't have to spy on anything." We were just venting. Girls talk, Eric. It doesn't mean anything." "It meant enough for you to actually do it." She stepped closer, and I could see the desperation in her eyes. Her perfect Instagram makeup was smudged, her hair wasn't styled to perfection, and her clothes looked like she'd slept in them. The woman who usually spent 3 hours getting ready to go to the grocery store looked completely undone. "I made a mistake," she said, her voice cracking. "I admit it. But people make mistakes in marriages. That's what forgiveness is for." "You didn't make a mistake, Dana. You made a plan. A detailed, calculated plan to psychologically manipulate me into submission. There's a difference." "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like? Explain to me how planning to ghost your husband for a month while you vacation with another man is anything other than manipulation." Her mouth fell open. "Another man? What are you talking about?" "Aiden. From the gym. Ring a bell?" The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. "I don't know what you think you know, but I know you weren't at a wellness retreat in Tulum. I know Aiden posted Instagram stories from the exact same resort on the exact same dates. I know you've been spending 4 nights a week at CrossFit classes that somehow last 3 hours each." She was shaking now, backed up against a concrete pillar with nowhere to run. Eric, please, just let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You wanted to reset the power balance in our marriage, remember? Congratulations. You succeeded. The balance is now 0-0 because there is no marriage. I turned to walk away, but she grabbed my arm. You can't do this. You can't just throw away 4 years because of one mistake. I looked down at her hand on my arm, then back at her face. Watch me. I pulled free and walked to my car. She followed, still pleading, her voice getting higher and more frantic. Eric, I love you. I know I screwed up, but I love you. We can fix this. I got in my car and rolled down the window. Dana, if you loved me, you never would have planned to hurt me in the first place, and you definitely wouldn't have cheated on me while doing it. I didn't cheat! Nothing happened with Aiden. I started the engine. Then you won't mind when it all comes out in the divorce proceedings. As I drove away, I could see her in my rearview mirror, standing alone in the parking garage, finally understanding that her perfect plan had cost her everything. But Dana still had one more card to play, and she played it 2 days later at the worst possible time and place. I was at Murphy's, a bar near my office, having drinks with Tom and a few other coworkers to celebrate finishing a major project. It was the first time I'd felt genuinely relaxed and happy in months. I was laughing at one of Tom's stories when I saw her walk in. Dana had clearly prepared for this encounter. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless, and she was wearing the dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. She looked like the woman I'd fallen in love with, and she knew it. She walked straight to our table, ignoring the surprised looks from my coworkers. Hi, Eric, she said softly. Can we talk, please? The entire bar seemed to go quiet. Tom started to stand up, probably to tell her to leave, but I held up a hand. It's okay, I said. We can talk, but here, in front of everyone. No more private conversations, no more manipulation. If you have something to say it now. She glanced around nervously at the faces watching us, then back at me. I want to come home, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. You are home. The apartment is yours, remember? That's not what I mean, and you know it. I want us to come home to each other. There was something almost genuine in her voice, a vulnerability I hadn't heard in years. For just a moment, I felt a flicker of the old connection. Then I remembered the group chat, the month of silence, Aiden's Instagram stories from Tulum. What about your plan to train me like a dog? I asked quietly. She flinched like I'd slapped her. That was stupid girl talk. I was frustrated, and I said things I didn't mean. What about Aiden? Nothing happened with Aiden. I swear to God, Eric, nothing happened. But you wanted it to. You went to Tulum with him. I went to Tulum to think, to figure out what I wanted. And what did you figure out? Tears were streaming down her face now, ruining her perfect makeup. I figured out that I want my husband back. I want my life back. I want us back. The bar was silent. Even the bartender had stopped washing glasses to listen. You want your life back, I repeated slowly. The life where you had a devoted husband who worked 60-hour weeks while you built your Instagram brand? The life where you had financial security and emotional support while you planned to manipulate me into submission? That life? Eric, please. Or do you want your life back because your follower count is dropping and your brand deals are falling through and your friends have abandoned you and Aiden turned out to be just as much of a user as you are? She was sobbing now, but I wasn't done. Because here's the thing, Dana. I don't want that life back. I spent 4 years of my life loving someone who saw me as a prop in her social media performance. 4 years supporting someone who was planning to psychologically abuse me for her own entertainment. And I'm done. I stood up and pulled out my wallet, throwing enough cash on the table to cover everyone's drinks. The divorce papers are final next week, I said. Don't contact me again. I walked toward the door, my coworkers trailing behind me in stunned silence. Just before I reached the exit, I heard Dana's voice one last time. "You're making the biggest mistake of your life." I stopped and turned back to look at her. She was standing alone at the table, mascara streaking down her cheeks, surrounded by a bar full of strangers who had just witnessed her complete humiliation. "No," I said clearly, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Marrying you was the biggest mistake of my life. This is me fixing it." The divorce was finalized the following Tuesday. Dana didn't contest it. Her lawyer probably advised her that fighting would only make things worse, especially if I decided to introduce evidence of her affair. I kept my word and didn't pursue any claims on her social media business or the apartment. I just wanted out, clean and simple. But the story doesn't end there. See, Dana had built her entire brand around being part of a perfect couple. When that couple ceased to exist, her content became awkward and desperate. She tried pivoting to divorce recovery and finding yourself after heartbreak, but her audience wasn't buying it. The comment sections were full of people asking what had really happened, why her husband had left so suddenly, whether the rumors about another man were true. Her engagement plummeted. Brands started dropping her. The influencer friends who had encouraged her manipulation strategy distanced themselves to protect their own images. Within 6 months, she'd lost more than half her followers and most of her income. Aiden, meanwhile, had moved on to his next target, a 22-year-old fitness model with twice Dana's following and half her emotional baggage. I heard all this through the social media grapevine, but I didn't take any pleasure in it. I was too busy rebuilding my own life. I got a promotion at work. Turns out, when you're not constantly stressed about your home life, you perform better professionally. I started dating again, slowly and carefully. I bought a house with a garage where I could work on the vintage motorcycle I'd always wanted to restore. For the first time in years, I was genuinely happy. But Dana wasn't done with me yet. Almost a year after our divorce was finalized, she made one last desperate play. She showed up at my new house on a Saturday morning, looking thin and tired but determined. I opened the door to find her standing on my porch, holding a coffee and what looked like a carefully prepared speech. "Before you slam the door," she said quickly, "just hear me out. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I should have closed the door. I should have called the police if she refused to leave. But there was something different about her, a brokenness that seemed genuine rather than performed. 5 minutes, I said, stepping outside and closing the door behind me. I wasn't letting her into my new life, but I could give her 5 minutes on the porch. "I know you hate me," she began. "I know I destroyed everything good between us, and I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. But I need you to know that I understand now what I lost." She paused, looking out at my small front yard where I'd been planting a garden. "I spent the last year trying to figure out how everything went so wrong so fast. I kept telling myself you overreacted, that you were cruel, that you should have fought for us instead of just giving up. But I finally realized that you did fight for us. For 4 years, you fought for us. You worked those insane hours to support my dreams. You took 1,000 photos for my Instagram posts. You listened to me complain about follower counts and brand deals and drama with other influencers. You showed up for me every single day." She was crying now, but quietly, without the dramatic sobs of our confrontation at the bar. "And when I had everything I thought I wanted, the followers, the brand deals, the perfect online image, I decided it still wasn't enough. I decided I needed to control you too." "Dana, I'm not asking you to take me back," she said quickly. "I know that's never going to happen. I just needed you to know that I understand what I did to you, what I did to us, and I'm sorry." She set the coffee cup on my porch railing and turned to leave. "Dana, wait." She stopped but didn't turn around. "What are you going to do now?" "I don't know," she said softly. "Figure out who I am when I'm not performing for an audience, I guess. Maybe get a real job. maybe go back to school, maybe just disappear for a while. For what it's worth, I said, I hope you figure it out. I hope you find whatever it is you're actually looking for. She nodded without turning around and walked to her car. I watched her drive away and knew I would never see her again. The coffee cup sat on my railing for the rest of the day. When I finally picked it up that evening, I found a note underneath it. Eric, thank you for loving me when I didn't deserve it. Thank you for supporting me when I didn't appreciate it. And thank you for walking away when I finally pushed too far. I learned my place too, alone, until I figure out how to be someone worth loving. Dana P.S. Your garden looks beautiful. I folded the note and put it in my kitchen drawer, not as a keepsake, but as a reminder. A reminder of what happens when you mistake manipulation for love, performance for authenticity, control for connection. Then I went back outside to water my tomatoes. They were coming along nicely, small green fruits just starting to form on healthy, strong plants that I'd grown from seeds with my own hands. Real things, growing in real soil, under real sunlight. No filters, no staging, no audience. Just life, growing at its own pace, in its own time, exactly as it should.